It's time to take command with former NFL tight end Logan Paulsen and former Commanders beat reporter Craig Hoffman.
What's up? What's happening? Welcome in. It is the Take Command Instant Reaction Show. I am Craig Hoffman. He is Logan Paulsen. We are streaming live on YouTube at 1067 The Fan and at the Team 980. And of course, many of you probably listening on a Monday morning on what is so close to having been a victory Monday. Instead, it is a misery Monday, and that will be what we have tomorrow, Logan, as we sit here on Sunday night on the heels of a 34-31 loss by the Washington Commanders to the Philadelphia Eagles in an incredibly hard-fought game where the Commanders offensively rediscovered what we hoped they would, but unfortunately the defense gives up 34 by the end of it, and that is 3 too many. As we think of our wide overall takeaways, there's good, there's bad. Where do you kind of sit 90 minutes here after the final whistle?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I did the post-game show and a lot of fans were really upset, which I guess is rightfully so to a certain extent. But I also think there's so many positive things, like, as a person who loves football and follows football, I coach football, like there's so many positive things to take away from it. I thought the play caller did an excellent job kind of adopting things to help insulate the offensive line, get the ball out of Sam's hand quickly, kind of you see a more balanced approach. I think, you see them understanding kind of how to find big plays. I think they did leave some on the field, but I just think the resiliency, man, like the resiliency in those critical moments at the end of the game are just so impressive to me. Like it's so easy to kind of say, hey, game's over. And I've been a part of teams that have just kind of thrown in the towel. And for them to go back out there like it was nothing, drive the length of the field and get a touchdown with 2 seconds left on the clock and kick the field goal. Like there's so many positives in this, right? B-Rob's running hard, O-line's like guys are competing. And I know that like that's hard to quantify, that's hard to explain, but to see that level of fight in a group, specifically the offense, I thought was amazing, and again, like I'm not a big moral victory guy, but I do leave this game thinking, man, this is so much different than the Buffalo game, for example. So, it's very positive. You saw a lot of things we had questions about, I think were answered in this game. And I think that's why maybe I'm more optimistic than the average fan, but I really was very pleased with a lot of stuff that I saw.
If I'm trying to analyze this fairly, I can't be mad at them for losing in places that are areas for growth, as long as those areas of growth get better. Right. And so when you see the growth today from Sam Howell in this offense, the bounce back ability and the tactical acumen, whether it's getting the yards after the catch, whether it's a smarter, it felt like use of the running game. It wasn't like they ran the ball like crazy. I mean, B-Rob's only got 14 carries, but there are carries that matter. And actually, arguably he was more effective last week against Buffalo, but the carries mattered and it felt more balanced and it kept the Philly defensive line a little bit more at bay. There's obviously, I think, still more to clean up in the pass protection category. That's going to be a topic for the Tuesday pod when we get over there or when we go over the tape. But at the end of the day, like they cut the turnovers, they got Terry involved, they got Jahan involved. Obviously, he catches the big touchdown at the end. All their playmakers feel like they had important touches. Curtis Samuel's used very wisely at times to get key pickups, including the first touchdown of the game. And I love to see all that from Eric Bieniemy. I think the frustrating part is there's frustrating individual things that happened. Terry I thought he was in on that catch. It looked like from that sideline angle that there was, some green blades of grass, and just wish that there was a better way to resolve that. And maybe you're super mad about that, but I feel like Commanders got a couple calls today that took advantage of, to their credit.
A couple of holding calls I thought that were a little bit not ticky-tack, but in other games they're probably not getting called, right?
Yeah, so. You'd be mad if they got called on the burgundy and gold. And so from that stuff, like it evens out in the end. I think the biggest concern point is the fact that this defense through 4 games, which is supposed to be the strong suit of this team. And I know they got no offensive support last week and they didn't really give up 30. I mean, I guess they did because they gave up 37 and 7 of them are attributed to a pick 6. But they've given up 30 points as a team, 3 of 4 games this season. And that's not going to be good enough to win in this league. But I do think from a resilient standpoint, I do think from an offensive, these are big existential concern standpoint, I feel a lot better this week than I did last week.
100%. I mean, this is I mean, this is from an offensive standpoint. I think you feel really good about a lot of the questions you had. Like, is Sam Howell for real? Is this offense for real? Is DB doing the right stuff? Like, I think all those boxes are checked today. And he's got to do it again next week. It's a week-to-week league, and I think they all understand that. I think defensively, the thing I would just call attention to is I just think the matchup with Emmanuel Forbes and AJ Brown was one that was exploited. And when you look at in Ron's presser, he was like, we got a young football player who needs to play the technique that we're coaching. And I look at that, and I kind of went, after Ron said that, I went back and looked at the stat sheet, and I was like, Forbes gave up 2 explosive plays late in the game, and how does the defense handle those situations better if they're, like let's say, for example, instead of getting a 60-yard touchdown, they have to drive that 60 yards. Do they get a delay of game? Do they get a false start? Do they get something that kind of tilts it back in your favor? You end up with a field goal instead of a touchdown. Maybe, right? And I do think, like, when you look at the second half of this football game, you get a very lackluster performance of the from the offense in the third quarter. Again, that's one of the risks of running the ball early and often is you do get behind the sticks. It gets harder to convert on third down. You get a drop by Jahan. Those things happen. Kind of a down period for the offense. The defense is on the field a little bit more. I think they did fine. It's for stretches, but obviously, like, that's a really good offense. That's a Super Bowl a Super Bowl caliber team, and they're going to go through phases like that. But I really think you look at the major issues, and I would kind of have to point to the inability to stop the run effectively in the second half, specifically coming out on that first drive for Philadelphia, and then I would also point to the explosive plays, and that I really think that kind of, I don't want to say that that's all on one player, but a big part of that's on one player.
Yeah. I mean, overall, they did a pretty good job on Swift, 14 for 56 on the day, which I think if we had said DeAndre Swift's going to have 56 yards when we were sitting at Tab Sports Bar this morning, we'd have been pretty psyched about that. And it's not like Hurts or Gainwell or anyone else got loose either. They actually averaged less yards per carry. Obviously, some Hurts come on sneaks. So take that for what it's worth. He did have one big one, the 24-yarder that he gets most of his yardage on. But it really does come down to the 9 for 175 for AJ Brown and those 2 big ones. I mean, it's a risky. I mean, in fairness to Emmanuel Forbes, a couple of things. One, I thought he battled, and he's a rookie going against one of the 5, 10, certainly 10, if not 5 best receivers in the entire league, who's kind of a bad matchup physically for him. AJ Brown is incredibly big and strong, and Emmanuel Forbes was stronger than his frame, but he still got his frame. Like AJ Brown bodies people, and Emmanuel Forbes just doesn't have the leverage or the width to avoid some of that stuff. But he battled, and by and large, except for the 59-yarder, he's able to bring Brown down after the catch. Obviously, in the touchdown he catches in the end zone, that's an irrelevant stat. And on that one, like, that is a ballsy call by the Eagles.
I actually thought it was a bad call.
That's what I was going to say. Is like, frankly, it's a dumb call. Like, you almost credit Forbes for being like, they can't possibly be going deep on me here. Like, I'm trying to create a turnover. Like, we need, and it's a time in the game. And maybe this is Philly's thought. And, they trusted their defense to hold Washington out of the end zone. And, Washington proved them wrong. But they're thinking, like, they're turnover hunting. This kid is the turnover kid. We can get him with the double move for sure. And they take advantage of it. And if so, credit to them. But it's a very dumb decision by them, because you could just kick out the game. You have a very reliable kicker. And instead they hit a double move. So, like, for Forbes' situational awareness, he's actually aware. It backfires on him because Philly does something out of the ordinary. So, like, it's the kind of thing where with him, I'm not concerned long-term. He's a young player. He's super talented. He's in the right spot a lot. He's got to learn how to make plays at the NFL level. And it sucks that you lost this game, but, like, I'm not really even as bad as it was. Maybe I'm being an apologist here, but I'm not that mad at Emmanuel Forbes for the day that he had.
Yeah, and again, like, that play at the end of the game, like, that's ridiculous. I can't believe Philly did that. A team that's so good at running the football and that down and distance in that situation with that kind of time left on the clock, like, no way, dude. No way should you be doing that. You could technically have possessed that football and never given Washington an opportunity to get the football back. Like that. Right. That's an insane thing. So in some ways, it was good that they scored a touchdown. I know that sounds crazy, but it was.
Like, if you're going to score that early, like, if they do that with 30 seconds left, yikes, man. You do that with like a minute 40 left or whatever it was. That's 50, so stupid. Minute
56, I think. So yeah, it was a long time, and then we had a time, and the Commanders still had a timeout. So yeah, I thought that was wild that happened. And obviously that lets the offense go down and score a touchdown, which is great. But I do think like one of the things that sticks out is like he gets caught on double moves, like he gets caught on the fake bubble, right, jumping up there. And to your point, like I think young football players take time to develop. Like he's not going to come in and be a baller day one. And I know people are like, "Oh, Christian Gonzalez is playing really well," and I get that, but I do think they're different types of players. They have different styles, and they've got to learn different defenses and how to execute within those defenses. And I think that's what you're seeing here. Much like Sam Howell is going to go through his ups and downs, like Forbes is going to go through ups and downs. So don't. I'm not being critical of Forbes. I'm just talking about when it comes to general offensive or defensive performance, like those metrics jump out at you. Those plays are huge plays in terms of the outcome of the game, because outside of that, I mean, I'm trying to remember back. There's not like a ton of explosives that Philly was able to generate, if I'm remembering correctly. It's like those two. I think Smith had one on a contested catch.
Smith had one, yeah,
which was close. But like, think about that, man. Like two of their three explosive plays, minus the Jalen Hurts run, are because of Forbes, and that is one of the issues, or one of the growing pains you go through with a young player. And so I look at that and I say, without those 14 points, like what is it, 17, something like that? I'm not saying that Philly wouldn't have scored again or scored on those drives, but it kind of, there is a question about it. And I think that's important to understand when evaluating the defense. And, like that's kind of my thought on that generally. I got a text from Linnell actually right after the game talking about, the defensive line, how the defensive line was disappointing. I mean, I actually thought the defensive line was better this week than they were last week against a better offensive line. And so, like, I think that context is so important. Like, that offensive line, when you watch them week to week, is amazing. Jordan Mailata did not give up a pressure against Minnesota, and he gave up like 4 today to Chase. Like, so they
Chase did a good job with his lane discipline today.
Absolutely. And Sweat did a good job on Lane Johnson, and Allen did a good job on a good guard, So it's like, I look at that and I say, like, they cannot. In the NFL in 2023, the defense can't win games for you. They can keep you in games, and I do think like that's where that explosive play element kind of shows up. It's like they can't make all these plays. So, could they have played better? Do you want more from that group? Obviously, because you want to win games. But in terms of like I'm pretty sure, and maybe I feel differently after we watch it on Tuesday when we do the film breakdown. But I'm pretty sure if I go through the all 22 and watch this play by play, I'd come out of it being like, a lot of guys played really good football. A lot of guys played really good football on the defensive side of the ball. And there's a couple plays here and there that really kill you. Like, Jamin had an excellent game, but Jamin misses a tackle on 3rd and 10 and again, that's a tough situation to be in. I understand that. I could never do that in my life, but if he makes that play, you might not get the field goal at the end of the game there. And it's just like, I think that is maybe what fans are feeling from a frustration standpoint. But if you like, when you watch as much film as I do and as much film as we do, you see that there's 10 plays like that in every single football game. There's times where defensive lines are totally inert, good defensive lines. And I think it's important to give that context to this game. And hopefully I'm not making an excuse for the defense, but I do think the context, it doesn't explain away the issue, but it kind of, I think it's more realistic.
Explosives kill you. Yeah. Like, explosive plays in this league kill you. And it's why you have to make teams earn every yard. And which is why I'm going to mention Derek Forrest as well on the play where Forbes gives up first one to Brown. Yeah. Like, that is that an explosive play that Forbes gives up? Yes. Derek Forrest cannot miss that tackle. Like, that's what you're paid back there to do, to go over and like your corner gets beat. Okay.
On the screen.
Yeah. On the screenplay, he comes downhill from his safety spot and is greeting Brown on the sideline, and he just misses. Yeah. And if that's stopped there, it's hard to score in the red zone in the NFL. They were citing some stats on the broadcast of how percentages are at the lowest they've been in a while from like that low red area, like 10 yards and in. It's really hard to score down there. So if you give up a play, like, it sucks. And you're probably going to give up a field goal. But a field goal is way different than giving up a touchdown. And who knows how the game plays out from there. But like, that's, that can't happen if you're Derek Forrest at this point in your career with what your job is as a safety. And it's not like the play last week that you give up to Gabe Davis where Josh Allen it's a great call against the coverage that you're in. Yeah. And then it's enhanced by the fact that Josh Allen's an alien from outer space with a superhuman rocket arm. Like, you're coming down from your safety spot to make a pretty routine tackle. Yeah, it's hard. But it's the NFL. It's hard. And so I think like plays like that as well. Like, I'm not trying to let Forbes off the hook there. I'm just saying, like, there's other guys. You can talk about the Jamin play for sure. Forrest, James has looks like he's got a free run at Jalen, and I think that wound up being the 24-yard scramble. And you're like, God. And it's the kind of thing where guys are right there. You have to finish. And like, that's the league. You know, we talked about this on last week's pod a little bit, I think, in the post-game show. This is the NFL's version of the NBA's. It's a make or miss league. Like, do you get the open shots that you want? Yes. Do you knock them down? Yes or no? That's going to determine whether or not you win the game. And while they hit a lot more open shots, if you will, than last week, they did not hit enough of them. And against a team like Philly, or at least to beat a team like Philly, and that's why they're on the wrong end of it today.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's good analysis. And I think, you know, it's just, and you go back and you watch, and like there's the play where I think it's covered 2, you know, and Jalen Hurts delivers a perfect ball to Devontae Smith, like where Cam's hitting him kind of right as the ball is caught. And it's like this, and you're like, man, like kudos. And they make plays, you know, and like that, like the bubble screen, like as much as I want to be really pissed at Forms, like it's bubble screen. It's a well executed play because he's trying to get up there and make a tackle. And I'm sure Ron would give you some insight about his technique and where he's deficient there or whatever. But when you watch it real time, it's a good looking play. It looks like a screen, and I understand like what he's doing and why he's making that move. And these are things you learn from and you get better at.
But you see like a veteran like Slay sniff it out when they try it on the other side. They tried to hit it to Jahan up the right sideline, and Slay's right on top of it.
Right. And so I think it's you're growing. And again, I'm not making excuses for the defense, because I definitely think in terms of point total, they've been disappointing, especially in this game. But I'm also like, explosive plays kill defenses, right? Because on a down-to-down basis in this game, outside of the start of the third quarter, I thought they did a pretty good job. You know what I'm saying? Like, and there's a couple plays here and there where you're like, man, we wish we would have had that one. Man, we wish we had that one. And that's the nature of football every weekend in the NFL.
So the one area where I look at the defense and I would feel like you're going to have a hard time pushing back on this. I'm
not pushing. And again, like, I think they could have played better.
Just like I would say that there's no context that can help them. I'm going to put it that way. They've got to start creating turnovers. And like, this has been a multi-year problem with this defense. And they've now brought in, I mean, that's why Forbes is here. They've tried to, do a couple of things here and there with some of their personnel to get guys on the field that they think can force turnovers. And they got a couple today where or at least the one where they knock it out and the ball just bounces right back to the Eagles player. And Gibson had his own one of those. Or like the O-lineman dives on it. But there's got to be, whether it's interception, there's got to be fumble, and this is where the D-line, they're playing well, but can someone get a strip sack? Like, they need at some point over one of these games to create a couple of turnovers, because the other part of that is, yes, they're generally doing a good job of like even holding teams to field goals on some longer drives, but 3 starts to add up for a while. And 1, you wear yourself down because you can't get off the field quickly. And 2, like, 0 is better than 3. 3 is better than 7, but 0 is better than 3. And you're also very much allowed to score yourself if you get the opportunity. So, they got the interceptions in the Denver game. Kendall had the one on the arm punt from Josh Allen last week. But like, creating turnovers with any kind of consistency is the missing piece of this defense, and will turn their production to where teams are not scoring 30 on them, no matter the circumstances.
Will, could you look up who's leading the league in turnovers right now? What that number is, please? Thank you. The other thing the other thing I look at with these last 2 games specifically is they had opportunities. They got their hands on footballs in situations where it was like, I think about the Percy Butler play we watched during the pregame show, and then there's another one with Cam in very similar kind of situation where he doesn't see Cam, the ball bounces off Cam's hands and it's still completed. Like, and then Forbes had one in this game where he's, Hurts throws it down the field and Forrest bumps into him and they knock each other off. And like, they have had opportunities. And in my experience in playing and watching and coaching football, if you have multiple, it's kind of like the pressure rate for sacks, right? If you're getting your hands on footballs, eventually those turn into turnovers. And it just, the rate at which that happens is always a little bit confounding. Like, I think PFF, I was reading something they put out recently, and it was like, turnovers are not necessarily something that you can find. Like, it's not something you can manufacture necessarily. The thing that is more conducive to that is just getting your hands on the football, like we're talking about. So it's good to see that happening more frequently. And I think it's just a matter of time before those plays start being actualized and becoming turnovers.
Yeah. In terms of turnover differential, Dallas, Tampa, Buffalo,
Six.
Philly, Pittsburgh, the teams that going into today had the most. Obviously, the Bills 4. Wonder what that total got inflated by last week. But you look at a team like Tampa, right? Like they don't feel like they're that good, but they get a bunch of turnovers and it changes the game for you.
Same thing with Philly, man. They've been pretty impressive about creating turnovers, right? Fumbles and things like that have gave them comfortable wins in games that they probably shouldn't. So I think this is a very valid point. It's just to me that the thing that I always go back to is like, with pass protection or with a running game, there's ways to make those things more effective. I'm not really sure how to make that more effective, if that makes sense. Like, how do you become a better turnover team? Like, I look at Dan Quinn, and I was with him when I was in Atlanta, and one of the things we did every day is we did like a live ball period. Like, we talked about turnovers at nauseum. We talked about it in practice. We talked about it in the meeting. We had periods where we were trying to punch the ball. It was just such a priority. And I'm not familiar enough with their practice structure and the way Jack communicates to the guys to know if that's true or not. But like, it really is like a mindset. And that's one guy on that list that Will just gave us. But, is that one way to do that? Is just get you thinking about the football more and more and more. So you're always thinking about punching it out. Maybe, I don't know. But hopefully some of these opportunities that we've seen become turnovers sooner rather than later.
Yeah, because you're just not going to be as talented as they are, as well as they play a lot of downs, down in, down out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be a top 5 defense, which is what the goal for this unit is, unless you're creating turnovers. It's basically impossible. The biggest decision of the game from a coaching standpoint comes down to Rivera at the end of the game and whether or not you go for 2. My initial thought, and I was sitting watching the game with my wife on the couch, and I was like, if they score here, Ron's going for 2. So buckle your seatbelt. And then he holds up the one finger, and they go out and kick the point after and send it to overtime. And I was like, man, that's kind of surprising. You're on the road. Yeah. Typically, that's the thought is if you're on the road, you go for the 2. Ron is Mr. Riverboat Ron analytics guy now. And then he doesn't. And I saw a tweet from Grant Paulsen after the game where he talked about how he's very surprised and he wishes they would have. And I retweeted that and was like, I agree with this. And then I heard Ron's presser and he said, frankly, it looked like he wanted to based on his answer. And then he just goes, frankly, the guys were gassed. As someone who's been in those types of positions before, you're on the field. Yeah, you need one more play for 2 yards. Is the gas thing real? Like, what do you make of the odds there and the decision as a whole and what goes into it?
You know what? I think I've only been in that situation once in my career. I think it was 2013. Kirk was playing quarterback. We were down in Atlanta, and we had like a pick play called in the red zone for a 2-point conversion. We had gone on a long drive, and I don't know. Just my philosophy as a player, is like you just scored a touchdown. You just went on a long drive. Like, you have the momentum. That fatigue you're experiencing, the defense is also experiencing. And I don't know. Like, I don't want to second guess Ron because he has access to information and kind of the feel of the sideline in a way that we don't. But especially against a team that I would characterize as better from a roster construction standpoint at this point, my experience, however limited it's been, is that if you have the momentum and if you're the underdog, just go for 2, right? Because I want to just flip a coin basically and say, we're going to give ourselves the best chance to be successful here on this one play. And there's a lot of things that go into that. Like, maybe EB used one of his 2-point plays earlier in the game, but didn't, and doesn't have one that he likes now, or doesn't have one for this situation, or the guy that ran it in practice is too tired. He's not in. And so, Sam doesn't have reps with Pringle running it or whatever. There could have been a million things going on there. But I think if all things being equal, even if they are really fatigued, like, I'm probably trying to run that. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably trying to get out there and run the 2-point play just because just the way Philly was operating in the second half from a defensive perspective, like, it was going to be hard to drive the length of the field and score a touchdown, I think, but it's not going to be hard to run one play that you love for 2 points. And, do you get it? No, I don't know. I don't know if you get it or not, but I just feel like that situation That's what I would have done if I was the coach. Now, again, I'm not on the sideline, so I don't know all the stuff that Ron is talking about. But if it was Logan's decision, just like immediately when they scored, I was like, go for 2. And, that's just my thought on that.
I think that's really good perspective, because I think you're correct that if there is any number of reasons that we are not privy to not do it, you shouldn't do it. And those range from EV doesn't have a play he particularly likes against this defense. He's used maybe like the Curtis Samuel end around or jet sweep plays. That was kind of the one that he really liked this week, and you're not running it again. So there's definite reasons there, but to me, the fatigue one is not good enough because of what you said.
Yeah.
You are the aggressor. They're just as tired as you are. And I mean, maybe he's on the sideline, he's reading the body language, and he's like, that was it. The last gasp was that. And now let's just let them catch their breath and let's see if we can do this in overtime. Yeah. And we know we trust our defense if we got to get a stop, whatever the reason is. But they're tired too. And, it's the kind of thing where, like, the way that Brian Robinson runs, how hard he is to bring down, how tall. I mean, look, it's from the 2-yard line. The man is 6'1". Like, he's 2 yards tall. If he falls forward and gets to the line of scrimmage and falls forward, he is in. And I think that is a relevant piece of information. I just would have probably run like a halfback, whether it's a halfback dive or, I'm using Madden terminology here, or, an outside or like an off tackle play, a power play, like whatever it is that you like, pick your favorite run play, run it. If you want to give Sam an RPO type of situation, okay. I mean, shoot, I would consider throwing a fade to Terry and living with the ball in the air with 17, depending on how much you like Sam throwing a fade. Like, I just, at that point in the game, after all you've just given, they're tired. You've got momentum. You're on the road. The calculation of overtime is not 50-50 in your favor. I've got enough playmakers out there that if I've got one play for the game, I'm probably going that direction. That said, I do not think it's an indefensible decision at all. This is not like a, Rivera, oh my God, how could he clock management snafu, some of which he's made in his 4 years here. And certainly in his 9 years in Carolina, Panthers fans will run to tell you of the issues that they have with his clock management and game management down there. But to me, this is it's a bit of a flip of a coin. I wish it would have landed the other way. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's not an indefensible, and it's a very understandable decision.
And that being said, too, like, I mean, even at the end of the game there, they get the ball. You did the hard part. You get the ball at halftime or going into overtime, excuse me. And then you're like a forearm away from having a ball in a really good position to go score some points, And so as much as we want to be critical of it, it's like, what if the same thing happens in the end? You know what I mean? Like, I don't hate it. I probably would have done something different, like I said, but I think like it wasn't like they had a bad drive coming out, like with that catch to Terry, that throw by Sam, I thought was excellent. And what a play by your guy, 17, and it just doesn't fall in bounds. Like, it's just, that's the kind of margin for error you're dealing with. And is it frustrating? 100%. Super frustrating, because like they did all of this emotional lifting to get to this point, and it falls short. That's never fun, especially given all the prep you put in the week. But, they did a lot of really good things in the game. And it's just crazy that it comes down to that decision, really.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last thing, and I'm pretty sure the direction, certainly the way I'm going to take this, but I'm curious your thoughts, is going to end on a high note here. We've talked about this a lot, but I just think it's worth reiterating. Like, this is career start number 5. It's his second ever road start. Philly's a nasty place to play. We had some fun talking about some Philly stories on Take 5 this week. The just to a point, it's stubbornness of that kid, but just the fact that he is never fazed by anything is so freaking impressive to me. And is it going to be enough ultimately to make him a long-term, high-level starter in this league? No, he still took 5 sacks today. That's not great. They got to continue to do that. And I'm curious why that happened. That's still a pretty high number, even if it feels a lot lower than last week's 9. That's for Tuesday's pod when you've had a chance to watch it all on tape. And I've had a chance to watch as much as I possibly can with whatever level of cooperation NFL Game Pass gives me. But the mental makeup, the toughness, the stick-to-itiveness, the unflappability of Sam Howell, I think, shines in this game in a way that makes me think he's going to be the answer at quarterback long term. And I know we do this every week, but that's the NFL until you have a guy.
Yeah.
How do you come out of this game feeling about 14?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, man, he is impressive, and especially I give it. And I think that's another thing. Another reason why I'm optimistic is like last week he played about as bad as you could have played. Like he literally, like I don't know if he could have played much worse. And it looked like the sky was falling. He looked totally unsettled, and which is tough because he played pretty good the week before that. And then to have that, you're kind of like, man, maybe he wasn't what we thought. And for him to come out, like you said, in Philly, show the composure that he did. I mean, he missed some throws. Everybody misses throws. I think there was that shot to Terry on the post where you want that one back, but. I think it was the drive before the final 2-minute, like where he scrambles, for a first down. He, extends the play, throws the ball to Gibson. Like they had 3 or 4 third downs in a row that are him just elevating the play. You know what I mean? Just fighting, clawing, scratching to get that done. And I just thought like that is a dude that has something to him, man. And I can't explain what it is. The stick-to-itiveness, the stubbornness, the resolve, the composure. All those things. And again, I'm not saying he's arrived yet, but like there's something about that gets you excited, coupled with the arm talent and the ability to execute this offense. And he had to do some stuff today that was challenging and outside of his comfort zone. And I just have a ton of respect for what he did, quite honestly, because he did a really good job. And in terms of bright spots, like it was so refreshing and nice to see that. For a young guy who, when he gets to the podium at the press conference, is just like he says all the right things. His demeanor's correct.
He believes it. Like I don't think he's a guy out there saying stuff. Yeah, like, I think that's just how he's wired.
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know him kind of because I've talked to him a couple times, but it's not like I know him. And I would say like he seems to be that same way when you're talking around the building. Like there's something to it, and we'll see. It's kind of one of those things where it can grow into something really beautiful, or it could die on the vine, kind of thing. But it's been really fun to watch these last couple of games as a Commanders fan and as a Commanders analyst, because it's like it gives you hope and optimism, and like it's because of the play, the physical tools, the leadership. And is it perfect? No, but it is better than a lot of the quarterbacks that I've covered here. So it is an exciting time.
I'll have to look this up, and I will for the pod this week, William, if we can make a note. How many quarterbacks have thrown for 290 in a game? Like how many 290-yard games have there been in this franchise in the last, let's say since Kirk left? Not that many. Sam Howell had it today. So we will continue to watch him grow and mature, and we will talk about it with a compact schedule this week. Here's what we got for Take Command this week. Tuesday morning, we're going to record our film review pod, but instead of holding that until Wednesday morning, like we typically do, we're going to put it out ASAP. So Tuesday morning, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're subscribed right now. Like I'm reminding you now. So if you're watching on YouTube, like just the subscribe button's right in front of you. If you're listening to this on a Monday, you're listening to it on a podcast app, where if you're not subscribed, you can hit subscribe right now. So do that. Go ahead, subscribe. And then as soon as we get done editing and turning this thing around on Tuesday, the film review pod will be out. We'll reconvene Wednesday morning for the Bears preview. And then Thursday, live at Tap Sports Bar, MGM National Harbor. The Hoffman show starts on the Team 980 at 4. You said you're coming early, right? So like technically the Take Command pregame show starts 6:30, but like, I don't know, Logan might start popping on early before that. So Take Him In pregame show officially at 6:30. That's when the simulcast begins between the Team 980 and 106.7 The Fan. But we'll be starting our football game day, burgundy and gold game day, 4 o'clock for me on the Team 980. And then Friday morning, we will do, because it's a late Thursday night, we won't do an instant reaction. We'll do a, hey, we slept on it reaction Friday morning. And then we'll get back to the regular schedule with the film stuff next week. So that is how the week shakes out for us. We look forward to seeing you on YouTube, to talking to you in your favorite audio podcast platform. Until then, for Logan, I'm Craig. Thanks for watching and listening, and we'll see you for Misery Monday, 4 o'clock on the Team 980.